Howdy, folks. Welcome back. It's May 26, 2020, and we're a couple months into this quarantine pandemic thing here in the state of Washington. Slowly but surely, county by county, we're opening up in this state very methodically. It seems to be driven completely by science, which is different than many places in the rest of the country. I've been watching the news, and there's some states that are just spiraling up in their numbers. And I saw a picture or a video in particular of Arkansas where people were in a large pool area partying, shoulder to shoulder. It's just as if this whole thing was just a bad dream. I'm afraid the nightmare has only begun for those people. And all of the experts are saying the same thing. But our number one expert, the guy who knows more than anybody in the whole country, Donald Trump, says, nah, don't worry about it. Come on out. Let's start spending money. Let's get together. I just think it's so crazy. I hope it doesn't backfire. I really do. Anyway, here's an area on this hillside here that's not unlike many of the buttes that we've seen before. This area right here has what appears to be missiles or aircraft or something attached to the side here. I don't know exactly. They're all lined up. It looks like they're attached and ready to go, but it's really hard to say. In this section here in front is just a great big piece of hull that's been torn away, literally torn off and landed here. You can see all the different plates on there. And right here is a great example of the different decks or the different levels of the vessels that have come down, that they've all kind of flattened down on each other. And up on top there looks like a big, like a gun turret. I don't know if it's a piece of the vessel. It kind of looks like a tank. I will say, though, that the turret on top with the gun is consistent with other turrets that we've seen on these triangular vessels. Speaking of triangular vessels, here's a small one parked in this flat area right here. I would say it's a very small, very, very small compared to some of the ones we've seen, which are really huge mothership type vessels that we've seen in the past videos. It's a great profile here. You can get the silhouette of all the crazy things that are sticking out the side of the cliff sides, which is not uncommon. This is virtually in the side of every hill and every butte in all the pictures because, of course, there are things sticking out. It's not natural, right? Have you ever heard me say that before? All of this debris is piled up high and has been here for millions of years, and it's slowly but surely falling apart, and all these pieces of scrap metal and metal shards are falling to the ground and covering the ground everywhere in Gale Crater. And these pictures, this picture right here has a couple items, and the one on the left there, I think, is the remains of a gun on a turret. And the object on the right is the shape of something that you see everywhere, over and over, all the time, usually down on the ground. And it looks to me like it's a gun turret type of thing. This is a deadly looking thing. I don't know if these are missiles or if it's mounted on a ship or if it's a ship on its own. Definitely kind of scary looking as far as it looks like an offensive weapon, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And you can see the side of it's opened up a little bit, and down below underneath it looks like it has a gun turret, like a ball turret, just like you've seen on the Millennium Falcon. On the bottom they have that ball turret with the gun on it. Looks just like that. Now, a lot of you have been wondering about the Orbs, and promise you, Orbs are coming right here in this dark area. Do you see them there? There's a whole bunch of orbs right in there, and they well, now you see them, right? And these orbs, from what I could tell initially, you tend to find them in the shade. We've never seen these before. I've never seen these before. This is the first time that I can recall ever seeing anything like this. And of course, your first thought is there's something on the camera lens. But upon closer inspection, they do seem to be autonomous. In other words, they're out there. It's not part of the lens. And again, you can see in the background there the deck levels of the ships that have come down and piled up. Just coincidentally behind these things there. And this type of levels of decking go either in the bottom or the top of these buttes. Now on the right hand side, just right of center, you'll see what appears to be a red colored orb, and it's mixed in here with all these other ones, and it, upon closer inspection, absolutely has a globe design. It's definitely a sphere, and it's definitely red, and it's quite a bright red, I must say. And I don't know why, of course, I don't know why. There are red ones, there's a few of them, and a lot more white ones. And there are a few here and there that seem to be somewhere in between in color, either a yellow, a very light yellow, or an off-white. Maybe they aspire to be red and they start out white and slowly go red. And you often find them tucked away in little holes or depressions inside the rocks. And if you look over at the 3 o'clock position coming in, there's one in there underneath something sticking out. Now this is a picture of just the hillside where there are vessels here, where you can see the edge of the vessels, and I've way overexposed this to highlight it, but you can see the edges of the vessels coming out from underneath the hull there. And also in the background here is a couple more of these orbs, and frankly, they're everywhere. At first it was such an amazing thing, and then I start finding them literally everywhere throughout this picture. And indeed, I've looked ahead on some other images, and I am seeing them now in other pictures. And here's a good shot. Now there's two of them here, and they're tucked in their little dark areas. And the one on the right is actually slightly behind an obstruction, just at the bottom of it. So it's round at the top and flat on the bottom. And that tells you right there that thing is actually there. It's in there, and it's slightly behind that obstruction. So crazy shapes everywhere in this picture. Here's a very large vessel on the top, and you can see all sorts of vessels and things here. This place is kind of falling down. Coming in from the 9 o'clock position in the darkness is another orb there, just tucked in there in the darkness. And then right in the center of the screen are two more vessels that you can easily see, both of them lined up, both of them triangular. We just see the front ends of them. But that's what these buttes are made of. They're made up entirely of different vessels, different kinds, mostly all rectangular. Here's another orb down in the darkness again, and but they're not always just in the darkness. They do come out in the bright sky as well. Now here's one that almost looks green, and it has a line coming down off of it. I don't know if that's from the orb itself or what that is. Is that a beam of light? I really couldn't say. It's none of the other ones have that, so I don't know what that was all about. And right here we have a small cluster of them, and you can see ever so slight shadows underneath them. Again, it looks like they're right over the surface, just enough to show a shadow. And here's a red one that is so bright that it is shining a red light off of the surrounding area. Again, this is a great example of something that is actually there. In other words, thanks to this bright light shining off of everything, it tells you that this is not a camera defect or something on the lens. And not unlike all of the other buttes, we find a lot of missiles and aircraft type things around. There's quite a few of them in these images. This one here kind of looks like an aircraft. I don't think it's a missile, but of course it's the remains of an aircraft. And I think it's interesting how they're always sticking up, and they're always up at an angle too. This is the remains of a triangular vessel, and it has a couple missiles on it. Interesting that we have this type of arrangement on a triangular craft. They seem to come in different. They make them differently, purposed differently. And this down here looks like a missile. It could possibly be an aircraft, and there's some other things in there that are missile-like, so I don't know altogether what it is. And if you look in this area, there's things all over in the rocks. Look at the to the right of this missile down there in the sand. Seems to be a vessel parked at an angle, facing down in this flat area. And like I said, this could be a missile or it could be an aircraft. It looks a little bit more like an aircraft than a missile to me. And then various ones here sticking out from the hillside, which is what everything does. Everything sticks out from the hillside or manages to find its way down to the ground. Here's a vessel right in front, and it's got some real interesting details on it, and also a little rack of missiles beside it. It looks like a rack of missiles, possibly with an aircraft in the middle. It's a very strange setup. Don't know what it's all about, but there it is. It definitely looks like an aircraft in the middle there. And look at the vessel in the front. You can get some pretty good detail on this thing. And it's so interesting how when you look at these buttes, they look so normal. They look so average every day, and until you get close. And here, this is a typical shot, and what looks like, vessel after vessel after vessel on top of each other. That's the way it always is. And some are smaller than others, and some are really huge, as I've said before. It's just, it's everything. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of these things. Now here above on this picture, you see two of those orbs in the distance. They're bright. They look like little suns in the distance. I've seen those before, and I just thought they were a camera issue, but they're there. And here's another cliffside with various types of vessels sticking out. And a lot of times these cliff sides, you'll see these very large openings that go back in there. And I wish once we would get a picture that could be looking straight down into these openings. And it'd be interesting to see how far down inside you could see. They seem to go back a long ways. Now here's another piece of a vessel or groups of vessels, I don't know. But on top of it is what looks like an aircraft, and you can see the cockpit canopy and a tail fin. So we can't see the wings, but it's another aircraft. And up on top here is the tip of another triangular craft, and all kinds of stuff in the walls here. And you can see the edges of this hull right here torn off. Great big hull surface there. Of course, we don't see what was on the other side because it's missing. A couple more missiles and other things sticking out of the sides. And then again, we have some pretty large pieces of hull that are flat, and you just see the frayed edges of them. In the previous videos, we didn't see much in the way of flat, undisturbed hull. And we get a couple pictures of that here in this video. And here is a number of vessels. They're sticking out of the hillside again, and they're triangular. And the one on top has quite a bit of detail. It's like hard to tell what's there, just because we can't recognize it, but there's a lot of stuff there. And here's another shot up the hillside, various levels of the deck. And you can see where it's bent over. It looks like it came down and bent over, and part of it fell down. And here's some of that undisturbed hull I was talking about. You can see the tattered edges of it, but there's some pretty good flat area, and we also happen to have an orb here in the middle of it. What are these orbs? What could they possibly be, and how big are they? You know, are they big enough for passengers? I think they are, because these hillsides are so far away that they must be large enough to accommodate at least one person. But who knows if they do or not? We'll never find that out. And I don't understand this line that goes down here. And if you look in the hillsides here, you can see so many shapes. And one thing I've noticed here is this area, like this area right here, looks like it got hotter than other places. It's as if the metal bubbled, and you see a lot of a different texture that we haven't seen in the other videos. Here's a big piece of hull laying here, and another craft of some kind sitting on top, and also some more of the deck levels of these crafts. This thing here almost looks just like a cruise ship. Of course, we know it isn't. And the front of it, which you would call a bow, it only looks like a bow because it's partially buried in the sand. And I gotta say, this filter they put on this thing is so orange or so pink, whatever you want to call it, really, really hard to deal with. I use a filter quite a bit, which changed the color a lot, but it also makes it more realistic looking. So what's the real color of all this stuff? I really couldn't say. I appreciate what the filter does. And here's a great example. It got rid of all that pink sky, and now we can see some hillside in the background along with a bright orb up there. I just did this. This is kind of for a silhouette sake. Let's just call this dusk on Mars, as took a picture as the sun goes down. And this thing up on top, we have no idea what that is. It's really hard to tell. There's so many different shapes involved. It's just debris for the most part, but it does look like there are missiles. And on the left here, maybe an aircraft or some sort of a craft. And then it's sitting on something that the skin is peeled off, and it's revealing the inner workings of whatever it is it's sitting on there. And in the background, behind this rock, is another one sticking up. And you can just see it in this picture back in the background there. And it's so interesting the way it's sitting there on this very narrow, kind of up and down debris. It's very large. It is reminiscent of some of the crazy rocks that you see in the southwestern United States. Very interesting. So this is the last video I'm going to do for a while. I don't know exactly how long it's going to be. I've noticed my viewership has gone down about 50%. At a time when I expected viewership to go up. During this pandemic, I figured we'd have more people watching. But apparently not. And I don't know, are we getting bored with this stuff, you guys? Do I need to find something to do? I wish somebody would talk to me and let me know what they're thinking. I think we just need to take a break for a while. And like I said, let me know. What do you guys want to see? Do you want to see more of this or something different? Thanks for watching, folks. Take care.